Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trauma TV. This is a segment where we take case studies from media and we explore trauma patterns as it shows up for them. So, having said that, our first case study is going to be Alex Hitchins from the movie Hitch. I love this movie because despite being a rom-com, because that genre has a reputation of giving too many passes and letting a lot of things slip, it doesn't let our main character get away with anything. And I'm here for it. So, we're looking at Hitch today, and we're going to explore defense mechanisms. So, defense mechanisms are exactly what they sound like. They are strategies that we come up with to protect ourselves against something that caused us pain once in our lives. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say you go to the beach and you get sunburnt this one time. Really bad, red skin peeling off, the whole 9 yards. So you would think, okay, this was a horrible experience. And here's how I prevent it. I'm just going to load up on sunscreen. That's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to stay in the shade. Now, in this episode, we want to look at how sneaky and covert defense mechanisms can be. And how they can become an identity. So a defense mechanism could start somewhere and very quickly snowball to take over our entire life. So let's go back to that beach example. So it could start with, I'm going to load up on sunscreen. Then it can escalate to, I'm going to stay in the shade. I'm not going to expose any skin. I'm not going to go to the beach. I don't like the beach. I'm going to avoid being outdoors. I'm going to avoid being out in the daytime. I don't get outdoorsy people. They're not really my type. I hate having to constantly explain why I can't come to the family picnic or hike. And pretty soon, you're only going out at night. And you have underlying beliefs like, I never want to be unprepared. I never want to take risks. So this is a bit of an extreme example, but this is how trauma works. It can literally take over every facet of your life and cripple your basic functioning. And this phenomenon of an incident or series of incidents that happened in the past and continue to affect you one way or another, this is trauma, basically. So with that said, let's talk about charm as a defense mechanism. So, who is Alex Hitchins, or Hitch? He's this really cool guy. Like, if we could sum up his personality, it would be charisma. He's the type of guy to walk down the street, blasting finger guns, high-fiving everybody. Like, he's just so smooth. And his job is teaching other men to be smooth when it comes to love. How he describes it is some women may not recognize a catch when they see one, and it's his job to open their eyes. So basically what he does is he gives men a play-by-play as to how to soften a woman's defense mechanisms so that a connection can be formed. And he does this by giving them a play-by-play, certain cues and phrases, gestures.
Now the key tonight is hang back. Give her plenty of space, but maintain the visual. It is your job not to mess it up.
Like, it's a full performance. He's like, no, listen, use a fluid concept, so we're just going to play with it until it looks presentable enough. Now, there is something that I want to emphasize here. Hitch is not deceitful. He is not teaching these men to be something that they're not.
Now, she may not want the whole truth, but she does want the real you.
What he's doing is he's giving them a persona that's approachable, that's likable, and that women can warm up to, basically. So he's teaching them how to perform. But it's still them. But it's just in a very specific context. So you could sum this up with all tact and no heart. Now, Hitch wasn't always the bee's knees. There was a time in his life where he too struggled with women. He was awkward and uncomfortable in his own skin. So he's in college, he meets this woman that he likes, and they start dating, and he's really hard on his sleeve about it. But she cheats on him and it doesn't work out. Okay, so this is the big incident. And remember what we said. We develop defense mechanisms to prevent these kind of big uncomfortable emotions of hurt, of pain, of shame. So he got his heart broken because he put himself out there and he was vulnerable. So what is he going to do? He's going to put that bad boy under lock and key, and he's never going to put himself out there again. He's going to be smooth. And what's more, he teaches men to do the same. I mean, think of his signature line. Without guile, without game, there is no girl. Except there is. So he's using charm as a defense mechanism. I mean, let's look at this. Most of what he says is a rehearsed one-liner. It's never something from the heart. It's always just something he knows people are gonna like. It's performative.
Begin each day as if it were on purpose.
You gonna get in the kitchen?
Well, I can stand the heat if that's what you mean.
Any man has a chance to sweep any woman off her feet. Just needs the right broom.
He's on all the time because that's how trauma works. You know, we are constantly trying to protect ourselves if we haven't processed that trauma first. So now we have a bit of a background as to who Hitch is, how he became to be this person, and why he's passing this torch along. Now, here's the thing about trauma and life. When we close ourselves off with all these, we put up all these walls to protect ourselves. Life doesn't like that, and life is going to give us the opposite of what we want. Life is constantly going to hit these walls, and each time we ignore it, it's going to hit us harder. It's going to turn up the heat. On the surface, it may look like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep finding myself in these same situations? Why is life picking on me? And it's going to keep pushing until we get the hint and look at whatever needs to be looked at. So for example, Hitch does get these comments and interactions. Like he has his brother-in-law who's like, dude, you keep doing this, you just don't put yourself out there. And he deflects. He's like, yeah, whatever, man.
All of us are not married to the woman of our dreams. Just not meant for everybody.
I'm going to go and I'm going to meet this lady right now later. Which again, he does with lines and tricks. When I say trick, I don't mean anything deceptive, but it is a performance. It's theater.
Hey, baby, can I get a couple Coronas over at the pool table, please?
Hey, asshole, I don't work here.
I knew you didn't work here. How else was I supposed to get you away from all those guys?
So, having said that, here's how life turns up the heat on Alex Hitchins. There are two key things that happen here. His newest client, Albert, and this woman he falls for, Sarah. Let's get into it. Albert Brenneman. The thing about Albert is, he is the antithesis, the exact opposite of Hitch. Where Hitch is all strategies and planning and cues, Albert is all heart and no game. The first things we see about him is that he's very open-hearted. He's very honest and vulnerable.
Been hurt a lot, I had a lot of bad experiences. Getting up every morning, feeling like the love of your life is waking up with the wrong man.
He goes right into his feelings and he has no problems, showing it, expressing it.
I see a cat, but I just want to dive in front of it because then I'll stop thinking about her.
Now, he has some self-esteem issues that we don't really need to get into right now. A lot of self-loathing.
You don't think I tried talking myself out of this? I mean, you don't think I know how ridiculous this is? I know.
Let's put a pin in that one. That's not quite relevant for this conversation. But other than that, he allows himself to feel.
You ever heard of Michelangelo? Heard of Sistine Chapel?
He's like, you're my Sistine Chapel. What does that say? That means that it's going to be really hard to turn Albert into a player. So Hitch does his usual thing. He's like, okay, this is the script that you have here. These are the things you say. This is how you act. This is exactly how you behave.
And what is the objective?
Shock and awe.
Tonight, you focus on one thing and one thing only.
Maggie, where does your inspiration come from?
Oh my God.
But the thing is, Albert just doesn't know how to do that. He constantly fails, and his real identity constantly spills over. He's unable to be molded into anything other than himself.
Does this even look like dancing to you?
It's just a little bit of me being me.
Irony is, it is through this earnestness that he gets to have a connection, that creates this connection with Allegra, the woman that he's in love with. Allegra falls for the real Albert. and not this charming clone that Hitch wanted to make him.
How did you know all that stuff about me? Like at boarding school when everyone used to tease me because I couldn't whistle? And having him dance like a buffoon knowing that I can't dance either?
So wait, that stuff worked for you.
It was adorable.
Then we have phase 2, Sarah. Now, Sarah is a different kind of defensive. Sarah's go-to weapon is not charm. It is cynicism. So cynicism is a way for us to avoid getting disappointed by assuming the worst and expecting it, by looking for it.
Relationships are for people that are just waiting for something better to come along.
You said that I'm always expecting men to let me down, right? I guess it's best just not to love at all, right? No, the point is I'm not going to start out assuming a guy's a liar. Why not? Because that's how you wind up like me.
And that is why Sarah is a tabloid journalist. Her job is to expose the worst in people. Just like Hitch turned his defense into a job, he's embodied charm to avoid people getting to know the real him and getting to that precious heart, and he teaches men to do the same. Sarah constantly finds the worst in everybody, and her job is to show people that.
Hey, if he's stupid enough to cheat, then the world should know he's dumb enough to get caught.
My job is to try to find the truth.
I mean, what is it about guys that makes them want to screw anything that walks?
And this is where it gets tricky, because both of these people feel justified in doing this. They feel as though they're helping people, in a sense that Hitch feels like he's empowering men to make connections. And Sarah feels like she's helping women see the truth and avoid getting hurt in the future.
Of course I'm gonna run it. Why should she waste her heart on some Swedish aristocrat?
My interest is protecting women from assholes like you.
So the intentions are super earnest. That's usually how these things go. Our intentions are, most of the time, they serve a purpose, but the way it's coming out is not open-hearted. And that is why life is going to keep coming at you. It's going to keep coming for your walls. Something else that I want to note about these two people, and about trauma in general. They are workaholics.
You are becoming a sick workaholic lunatic behavior that leads to
Pictures of Subby with a busty brunette.
a very big raise.
That is to say, they're so afraid of putting themselves out there by going for these risks, by taking these chances that they've dedicated all their time and energy into their work, which is something they're good at.
Hey, I think that it's great that you're so good at your job. I'm just a little worried as to why.
They're both the best at what they do, basically.
You could find dirt in a snowstorm.
Think about it. Sarah goes on vacation one time. This is the first time in a very long time that she has a break.
And apparently never left the office.
And there, she finds a case. Somehow there's a tabloid scandal.
There is more to life than watching other people live it.
Can I help? He was cheating on my beach.
Although if we know how energy works, it's not a coincidence. So even on her break, she's getting dirt. And then the only time we see her at bars or hanging out is when she's looking for celebrities, again, to get scoops, is what the youths call it, I think. That is with regard to Sarah. And then Hitch, again, if he's not teaching men to do this, he's doing it for his own life. He goes to bars and he does his little shtick of, here's some catchy lines and sways you shoulders. You into it? So that is how trauma takes over our lives. It's what we do all the time, and we bring it into every area of our life. Our love life, our work, our friendships, our relationships, and our identity. We've set the stage, we've identified how these two operate. Now let's talk about them as a couple. How do they get on? The night that they meet, Alex comes in with his intel and his rehearsed routine. His usual thing.
Now, on the one hand, it is very difficult for a man to even speak to someone that looks like you. But on the other hand, should that be your problem?
And she's kind of into it, but it doesn't really hook her necessarily. She's like, okay, it's refreshing, sure. What really hooks her is when he breaks character, when he deviates from the script, when he slips up, which is a lot. Everything goes wrong. He's just constantly off his game.
How are you?
I'm good, I think. No, actually, you know what? It's feel a little strange.
I'm good.
Which is ironically what Sarah finds endearing when she can see through the mask.
You said that I'm always expecting men to let me down, right? Assuming that they're gonna fail, which he did. Yeah, but he did it with flair.
So, we have the infamous allergy scene. So Sarah's a little bit nervous to ask him out on a date because she really likes him, and that scares her because she's so used to dismissing a guy and finding a million flaws by now. Plus, her boss pressures her because she's doing a story on Albert. So there's that workaholism at play. But anyway, they go on this date at a food place with her, the boss, and the boss's wife. Again, everything he says is an attempt to impress everybody, so there's that armor polished and ready to go.
I know what's happening.
No. You think that I'm in a stressful state because I'm trying to make a good impression, dealing with my commitment issues. Ugh.
Like the entire evening is him losing grip of his persona, of his usual stuff, and just trying to maintain control in whatever way he can. And the pressure gets to a point where he completely cracks. You know, he has to take anti-inflammatory medication for his allergies, and, you know, he's a little bit high off of that. And that's when he cracks. He starts to get a little bit vulnerable.
You ever been in love?
Yep.
And I think we can safely say that that's the moment when Sarah really develops some feelings for him, because she gets to see who he really is. And parallel to that, her persona starts dissolving as well. Okay, so since all of this didn't get our boy Hitch to crack, life's gonna turn up the dial just another notch. So, we have a big conflict moment. Sarah finds out what he does, and she misinterprets it to mean that he's a con artist, a pickup artist. These people who teach other men, or anybody really, it doesn't matter, how to pick up people just for sex mostly, using manipulation, using slimy tactics. Which Hitch is not. We established that what he does is defensive. It's a very guarded thing that he teaches, but it is honest. Except for the times where it's just like a tiny bit deceptive.
My God!
But let's move on. Let's not go there. So anyway, she finds out, she freaks out, and she's like, "You liar."
You handled me. You manipulated me. You researched me.
And again, she goes back to her defense mechanism, to her pattern of, I knew that people disappoint, and here you are doing that. Like, she's so ready to give up on this thing and to reject him because that's her comfort zone. Trauma is about familiarity. We go to the patterns that we've experienced for a long time. And he explains where he comes from, which is, again, he never wants to be not prepared. He always wants to be on guard.
Does it ever occur to women that maybe a guy might like to have a plan? He's not sure that he could just walk up to you and you'd respond if he said, I like you.
And the other men double down. They're like, yeah, this is how we feel, right? So what happens in conflict when we're coming from a closed-hearted or traumatized space? It's hardly you versus me. It's often my trauma versus your trauma. So she resorts to her cynicism and her distrust of men specifically.
I know exactly what you do and how you do it. Hey, you know what? If this doesn't work out, you can give him a call. He might hook you up with Paris Hilton.
Why don't you go hit a titty bar with your buddy Vance?
And he resorts to putting up walls again.
I should have asked you, but sometimes you're so guarded.
I'm not someone who likes to get involved past a certain point.
Right about now, everything seems to be going wrong for Hitch. His business is under threat, his relationship is no more. Basically, his life is up in flames right now. That's kind of the effect that life is going for. Life wants to crack us open so that what is no longer serving us can just dissolve. So, Albert gives him a reality check. He tells him basically that his business strategy comes down to, I will teach you how to never feel like this again.
I mean, I've waited my whole life to feel this miserable. I mean, and if this is the only way I can stay connected with her, then...
No, you don't. You can change, you can adapt. You can make it so you don't ever have to feel like this. Ever again.
And Albert's like, that's not how love works.
Love is my life.
No, love is your job.
This isn't about love for you at all, is it? This whole time I thought I was the coward.
So Albert is a really important sort of teacher or a catalyst for Hitch. And finally, all of this succeeds at cracking down Hitch. He finally understands how all these tactics are weighing him down and how they're actually an obstacle to everything he really wants. So he goes back to Sarah, and at first he's closed. At first he's still defensive. He's still trying lines and things, and it's not really working. So the first attempt at an apology doesn't get him anywhere because he's defensive, she's defensive. If two hearts are closed, they can't really connect. So that is why it's so important for him to just drop all the act and to just come out and be like, I have feelings for you and I want to pursue you.
I'm just as scared as you are, Sarah. But here I am, Sarah, falling.
So let's just do a little recap of everything that we went through. So trauma is when something from the past, something that caused us a very strong emotional reaction, continues to shape our behavior and identity. Because sometimes that behavior does become an identity. And when we're disconnected from our heart and from ourselves, we can't connect to other people. It's only when we learn to soften these defenses that we can do that, which is ironically what Hitch teaches to these men. He teaches men to soften women's defenses so that they can be open enough and maybe form a connection. But I think that after this experience, as he continues to be a love doctor, he'll do this by teaching men to be open in the first place.
Basic principles. There are none.
Without guile, without game, there's no girl. Except there is. So this has been Trauma TV. My name is Laura. I am a trauma coach, and I really love what I do. I love helping people rebuild their relationship with themselves and learn to love their inner demons. Because love has a greater lifespan than fear or hatred. I'll see you next time.